This happened just a few weeks ago. I had recently moved to a small town in New Mexico, thinking it would be perfect for my work. I wanted some peace after years in the city. The adobe buildings looked charming, but I was wrong. On my second night, I felt a chill. Sounds from outside made me nervous. At first I thought it was just the wind, but then I saw quick movements in the shadows. It made my heart race. I brushed it off as my imagination, but couldn't shake the feeling of unease. As days passed, I noticed more strange things. My neighbors had hollow eyes that stared too long. I heard whispers in the wind that sounded like my name. At night, my lights flickered, and I often felt cold out of nowhere. One afternoon, I found an old skin mask on my porch. I had no idea where it came from. It sent chills up my spine. I remember one night when I was coming home from work. I saw Mrs. Sanchez by her gate. She didn't wave, she just stared. I felt a shiver and hurried past her house. My heart pounded. That night I sat on the couch trying to relax. The whispers returned, like a soft lullaby. I thought it was the wind, but it didn't feel right. I turned on the TV, hoping it would drown the sounds out. The lights flickered again, making me uneasy. I stood up to check the bulbs. They seemed fine. A few days later, I decided to explore the neighborhood. As I walked, I felt eyes on me. When I passed the old church, I saw a figure moving in the shadows. I turned fast, but no one was there. My breath caught in my throat. I told myself I was just tired. Then there was the mask. After that strange encounter with Mr. Garcia, who had always been nice, he looked at me with cold eyes. I picked up the mask, running my fingers over it. It felt rough and wrong. I got a bad feeling in my stomach. I wanted to ask my neighbors about it, but whenever I did, they looked away fast. Their eyes lost focus and they changed the subject. It confused me. I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I needed to leave. The town felt wrong, like something was hiding. One night, as I locked my door, I heard my name whispered in the wind. I looked outside, but there was nobody there. I felt a heavy weight in my chest. I didn't want to believe it, but as I stood there, surrounded by silence, I understood. I was not welcome here. The whispers weren't just the wind. Something was waiting, and I was its target. The next morning, I woke up feeling on edge. Shadows seemed to linger longer than they should have, and my skin prickled with anxiety. I knew I needed to check in with the neighbors again, especially after the mask incident. I had to confront the odd behavior. I walked down to Mrs. Sanchez's house first. When I knocked, the door creaked open slowly. Her face appeared, expressionless. "Good morning," I said, forcing a smile. She didn't respond. Instead, she just stared, her eyes piercing through me. I felt small under her gaze. "Have you found out what this mask is?" I finally asked, trying to sound casual. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes shifted, glancing toward the inside of her home, as if someone was listening. "It's not our business," she whispered back. "You should leave this place." I turned to walk away, the chill returning. It wasn't just strange, it felt urgent. As I walked, my mind raced. What was this mask? Why did the neighbors act so fearful? I decided to go to the old church next. I figured someone there might know more. I arrived at the church just as the sun reached its highest point. The building looked even more worn than before, with paint peeling from the wooden door. Hesitant, I pushed it open, and the heavy door groaned. Inside, the air felt heavy, like pulling through molasses. The sanctuary was empty. I walked down the aisle to the altar, feeling the silence surround me. Then I heard a rustling sound. I turned, but no one was there. I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the altar. That's when I noticed something shiny partly hidden under the old altar cloth. I kneeled down and pulled it free. It was the skin mask again, but it looked different. This one had strange markings carved into it. My heart raced. I glanced around, half expecting to see someone step from behind a pew. "What is this?" I muttered to myself. My pulse quickened as I wondered if it was connected to the last mask. I had to find out. Just then, the creaking sound returned. I spun around and came face to face with a tall figure in a black cloak. The hood obscured the face, but I could feel its eyes boring into me. My breath caught. "What do you want?" I stammered. The figure stepped closer, and a low voice escaped from beneath the cloak. "You must not disturb what lies beneath." Fear took hold of me. I backed away slowly, but the figure raised a hand, stopping me. "Leave this town while you can." Before I could respond, the air around me grew cold, and the figure vanished before my eyes, as if it had never been there at all. I stumbled back, the mask slipping from my fingers and clattering to the floor. Panicking, I ran out of the church, my mind racing. I felt an overwhelming urge to escape, but as I reached the door, I froze. Outside, the neighbors stood in their yards, staring at me with their hollow eyes, all in perfect unison. I was trapped in a nightmare. Now I knew. I had to uncover the truth before it was too late. But how? Every path seemed more dangerous than the last. I headed home, heart pounding, desperate to figure out what these masks meant and who had been watching me all along. As I dashed away from the church, I struggled to catch my breath. The neighbors' vacant stares haunted me, and every step felt like a countdown to something terrible. I needed to think, to gather my thoughts away from their piercing eyes. Back at my house, I slammed the door and locked it. My heart raced as I leaned against it, trying to calm down. I glanced at the mask, now lying on the floor. It felt alive, waiting for answers I couldn't provide. I pulled myself together, forcing my mind to focus. The markings on the mask nagged at me. They were too intricate to be mere designs. I grabbed a notebook and sketched the symbols. They looked like something from a long-forgotten history, something dark, something that tied back to this place. Suddenly, the soft sound of scratching broke my concentration. I turned toward the window. It was just a tree branch brushing against the glass, but for a moment, fear twisted in my gut. I approached the window and peeked outside. Nothing. The street was still. I shook my head, chastising myself. This paranoia was getting out of control. Yet, as I turned to go back to my desk, a shadow caught my eye. I whirled around, but it was gone. Just my imagination, I told myself. I returned to my notes and did some research online. I typed in keywords like skin masks, rituals, and New Mexico folklore. That's when I stumbled upon an old article about a local legend. It told of a creature that wore the skins of its victims, thriving on their life force. They called it la piel de muerto, the skin of the dead. The connection hit me like a jolt. The masked figure, the townspeople's fear, everything was tied to this legend. But why now? And why me? Before I could delve deeper, my phone buzzed violently, startling me. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Hello?" A distorted voice rattled through the line. "You must listen. The masks are calling. You've stirred something." The voice was low and echoing, threading panic through my veins. "What do you mean?" I pleaded, but the line went dead. Heart racing, I stared at my phone. I had to connect the dots quickly. Then the knocking began. It was steady and rhythmic, echoing through the silence of my house. Fear gripped my throat as I moved toward the door again. I hesitated. Who could it be? A louder knock startled me, and I jumped back. "Open up," came a voice from the other side, familiar yet warped. My neighbor, Mr. Thompson, spoke urgently. "You need to come out, it's not safe." I looked at the mask again, realizing that whatever it held wasn't just a myth. I felt the urgency climbing. I had one chance to confront this darkness. "Stay away," I shouted back, trying to stall for time. The knocking grew more frantic. "Please, you don't understand what's happening. They're coming for you." Panic struck hard as I thought of the figure in the cloak, the neighbors watching me. They were closing in. Then everything went dark. The power flickered off, plunging me into silence and shadow. I grabbed a flashlight, heart pounding, and steeled myself. I couldn't let fear consume me. I had to know the truth. As the knocking stopped, an eerie stillness took its place, wrapping around me like a shroud. What was out there? Who was watching? Desperation surged. I needed to find the answers before they found me. That's when I heard a whispering outside the door, soft like leaves rustling in the wind. Open the door. We're waiting. I dropped the flashlight for a split second, heart racing as dread settled in my stomach. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Open the door. It was like they were wrapping their icy fingers around my neck. I backed away, retreating into the shadowy recesses of the room. My mind whirled. If the neighbors were involved, if they really were looking for me, then what did they want? I had to think clearly. Suddenly the mask caught my eye again, lying still on the floor, its symbols gleaming faintly in the beam of my flashlight. It felt wrong. It felt alive. I knew I had to confront whatever darkness it carried, but I wasn't ready to face it directly. Instead, I rummaged through my drawers, looking for anything I could use to defend myself if things turned hostile. My fingers found a can of pepper spray tucked in a corner. It felt lightweight and reassuring. Just stay quiet, I whispered to myself. Just breathe. The whispering outside shifted. It was no longer that haunting, airy chorus. Now it was interspersed with muffled voices. Help her. She needs to be saved. I turned back to the door, torn between curiosity and fear. Saved from what? I muttered. The design on the mask started to pulse in my mind, an unsettling reminder that the answers I sought might have dire consequences. Then, without warning, a loud thud echoed from the side of the house. My heart leaped into my throat. Someone, or something, was testing the perimeter. I needed to move, to act. I crept towards the back of the house, realizing I was cornered. Against the dread outside, the mask called to me in a way I could not ignore. I couldn't bring myself to wear it, but I grabbed it off the floor, feeling its cold heft in my hands. The whispers turned into a murmur, almost pleading. Use it. Become one with us. Chills ran down my spine. I'd read enough to understand that invoking something like La Piel de Muerto could mean losing my humanity bit by bit. Yet what if it was the key to unlocking the truth? What if I needed to embrace the darkness to figure this out? Footsteps pounded on the porch, heavy and deliberate. My hands tensed around the mask. I could hear Mr. Thompson's voice again, rising above the others. You don't understand. You'll bring it. You'll summon it. The urgency in his tone sent a shock of clarity through my mind. I had to make a choice. I could hide or I could face them. Either way, something significant was about to unravel. Summoning all my courage, I turned towards the door. I wasn't going to cower anymore. What do you want? I shouted, not sure if I was addressing the neighbors or the darkness that clawed at my mind. Their response was immediate. A chorus of hushed voices. Let it in. Let it consume you. Let us help. Then I heard it. A soft rattle like chains in the darkness beyond my door. That noise was unlike anything I had ever heard. A clear signal that I was running out of time. I took a step closer to the door, adrenaline igniting my senses. If you want in, you'll have to come through me. The last word echoed in the room as silence enveloped me, thick and foreboding. For a moment I thought I had a grasp of the situation, but the sound of something scraping against the door handle froze me in place. I held my breath, knowing that whatever was on the other side was no longer a mystery. It was almost here. I barely dared to breathe as I stood in front of the door, the flashlight flickering in my trembling hand. The metallic scraping continued, steady and relentless, as though something or someone was trying to gain a foothold inside. I pressed my back against the wall, heart pounding, fingers tightening around the mask. Please, a voice whimpered outside, a tone so familiar yet distorted. Help me. You've got to help me. My stomach twisted. Was that Mrs. Thompson? I had known her for years. This couldn't be her. It felt wrong. She wasn't the same woman who brought over cookies or watered my plants when I was away. Panic seeped into my bones. Help me, the voice repeated, more insistent now. It's coming. Let me in. The visions swirled in my mind. Shadows moved just beyond the door, shifting in the weak light as if they were alive. I had to do something. I couldn't just stand here, paralyzed by fear. I took a deep breath and edged over to a window, careful to stay hidden. Outside, there were figures huddled together, their faces shrouded in darkness. The moonlight cast long shadows, and their features flickered like ghosts. Each one wore an expression of dread that sent chills coursing through me. Then just when I thought I might recognize one of them, a loud crash echoed against the back of the house. Something heavy had toppled over. My pulse quickened. The threat wasn't just at the door. Whatever was out there was spreading. I darted back to the center of the room. If the whispers from before were echoes of the people I once knew, then the urgency behind them told me I needed to defend myself. I held the mask closer, feeling its weight, its energy. That was when I noticed something else. From the corner of my eye, a sliver of light flickered at the edge of the door frame. I threw myself to the side just as the door crashed open. Before I could even react, a figure lunged into the room. It was tall, its eyes glinting with an unnatural hunger. I raised my pepper spray, but it was already too close. "Stop!" it growled, voice deep and hoarse. "You don't understand." I backed up against the wall, adrenaline surging. Whoever this was, they weren't human anymore. "Get back!" I shouted, spraying the pepper in their direction. The figure recoiled, hissing in pain, but their form began to shift. I stumbled backward as the face morphed into a mask of twisted features, blending into something out of a nightmare. I managed to catch a glimpse of the others, the neighbors just standing at the threshold, watching impassively. Their faces were frozen, as if they were mere puppets. "What have you done?" one of them whispered, emotionless. I could barely comprehend the weight of the situation, as the figure in front of me shook off the spray and lunged again. "You must embrace it," it cried. "You're stronger than them." In a desperate move, I grabbed the mask from the floor. "No!" I yelled, shoving it on my face without thinking. The moment it made contact with my skin, visions flooded my mind. All the memories of those standing outside, their secrets and fears, a yearning to be free from whatever was haunting them. But now I felt myself blurring, trapped between their darkness and my own. As I felt myself slipping, a new sensation gripped me. I could see, I could feel, but I was losing who I was. The others moved toward the door again, and I realized that I was no longer just a spectator. I was part of something larger, something dreadful. If only I could find the truth buried beneath it all before I was lost completely. "Help me," I whispered, but the words felt foreign as they escaped my lips. The shadows drew closer, and I wasn't sure if I was reaching out for help or inviting them in. The moment the mask settled onto my face, everything changed. It was like stepping into a dream where shadows wove around me, pulling me deeper, revealing glimpses of lost memories. The air felt thick, heavy with a weight I didn't know I could bear. I turned back to the figure, its distorted face now a warped reflection of sorrow and rage. "We have to fight them," I shouted, though the words felt empty. I wanted to believe I could reclaim myself, wrest control from whatever had ensnared me. The figure hesitated, its eyes growing wider as if seeing me clearly for the first time. "You're not one of them," it gasped. "You can still break free." Suddenly, I felt the shift. The energy around me pulsed, and the neighbor's true nature flickered through the mask. They were not simply standing there, watching. They were tethered to something dark, something powerful, as if the very shadows craved their essence. I took a step towards them, compelled by some instinct I couldn't shake. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice trembling. But their faces remained impassive, mimicking a sinister calm, as if they all shared the same secret. "Join us," the tall figure urged. "They need you. You'll become one of us." Trepidation seized my heart. I could feel their pull, seductive and strong, winding around my limbs like chains. It would be so easy to give in, to lose myself and belong to the darkness that now felt like home. But I fought against it, clenching my fists and forcing air into my lungs. "No," I shouted, shaking my head furiously. I took another step back, but my vision blurred as the memories from the mask surged once more. Faces of neighbors flitted past, those who once greeted me at sundown, who cared for their gardens and children. I saw them smiling, laughing, and then I felt the slick, cold touch of despair wash over. They were not evil. They were victims. Underneath the sorrowful masks of their true selves, they were filled with fear, hope, and longing. Just then, a piercing scream erupted from the back of the house. My heart raced as I turned, hearing the crash again, the heavy thud of something monumental falling apart. "What's happening?" I yelled, looking at the tall figure, whose expression shifted from anger to panic. "It's coming for you. We need to go," it shouted. The words sparked something inside me. I had to fight not just for myself, but for the others too, the ones still trapped in shadows. I had no idea what I would do, but this wasn't about surrender. I had to uncover the truth behind this madness. The shadows retreated momentarily as I broke free from their grasp. I ripped the mask off my face, gasping for air. But when my eyes opened, I saw them. The neighbors, their eyes blackened, surrounded the doorway, blocking my escape. They were no longer just figments of my imagination, but twisted, anguished souls craving release, and I was in the center of it all. That's when I noticed something glinting on the floor, the startling shimmer of a blade. It was small, but fierce. I reached for it, heart hammering. If this was a fight for their freedom, I had to be ready. "Do you fight with me?" I called out, looking into the eyes of the tall figure, who now shrank away from the group gathering around us. But it wasn't just the neighbors closing in, clawing toward me. Something else was creeping forward, something darker. Shadows that whispered my name, urging me to join them. And then, like the darkness within me, everything went black. I woke up gasping, disoriented. The shadows receded, replaced by a blinding light above. I blinked rapidly, displacing the remnants of darkness from my mind. As I looked around, I realized I was lying on a cold metal table. Panic surged through me. Where was everyone? The room was empty, save for the strange apparatus surrounding me. Flickering screens displayed static and strange symbols I couldn't decipher. The ghost of fear crawled up my spine as I tried to piece together what had happened. I remembered my neighbors, the tall figure, and the impending darkness. Had I escaped? "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing against the sterile walls. Silence sat heavily in the air. I could feel a terror inching closer, the shadows clawing at the edges of my mind. They wanted me back. Suddenly, buzzing filled the air. A panel slid open at the far end of the room, and I froze. Was it a friend or a foe? Slowly, a figure stepped through, and I squinted against the harsh light. It was someone I recognized. The tall figure from before, but now it looked different, more human. "Are you okay?" it asked, urgency creeping into its tone as it rushed to my side. "We need to move." "Move where?" I countered, scanning the room for an exit. Fear clouded my judgment. "And what's going on? Who are you?" "We don't have time. They'll come for you any moment." The figure grabbed my arm, pulling me up. "This place is a trap. They'll use you." "Use me for what?" I protested, yanking my arm free. "You have to explain." My heart raced, pounding in my chest. Taking a deep breath, the figure softened. "My name is Lena. I once wore a mask like you, but I broke free. You can too, but you have to trust me." Before I could respond, the room quaked, shaking like an earthquake. The lights flickered, and a low rumble filled the air. "That's them!" Lena yelled, eyes wide with fear. "We have to go now." With a rush of instinct, I followed her into the corridor. It was claustrophobically narrow, and as we dashed forward, I felt the shadows swirl around us, whispering, taunting. "You belong to us," they hissed. I shook my head, willing them away. "How did you escape?" I shouted as we reached a solid door, slamming my palm against the panel. "Trust," Lena replied, pressing a combination into the keypad. "You have to let go of your fear. It only strengthens them." Before I could respond, the door hissed open and we stumbled into sunlight. But it wasn't a refuge. The sight before me twisted my stomach. The street was lined with neighbors, their forms shifting and writhing. Their faces were a patchwork of fear, anger, and desperation. Dark tendrils twisted around them, revealing more of the darkness behind the masks, pulling at their very essence. "What do we do?" I gasped, feeling the pull of the shadows tightening around me again. "Remember who you are," Lena urged. "That's how you fight back." Then, to my horror, I saw a familiar face among them. My neighbor, Mrs. Green, stood at the forefront, her eyes deep pools of darkness reflecting anguish. "Help us!" she screamed, her voice shrill and distorted. Everything inside me shifted. I had to free them. That was the answer. I was one of them, and I could fight back. I should fight. But just as adrenaline surged through my veins, something cold and merciless seized my heart. They began to move, not toward me, but toward Lena. An unseen force drew them closer, an overwhelming urge to reclaim the light she held. "Lena!" I yelled, reaching out as the shadows closed in on her. In that instant, everything changed. I could see the shadows swirling around Lena, dark tendrils pushing toward her. I wanted to run to her, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. The air thickened with fear. Time seemed to stretch, and my mind raced with options. "Fight back!" Lena shouted, her voice breaking through the mounting chaos. "You can do this!" I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. She was right. I had to find my strength. Just as the shadows converged on her, I stepped forward. "Leave her alone," I cried, the words spilling from my lips like a surge of energy. The shadows hesitated, swirling as if unsure of what to do next. I could feel their icy grip starting to loosen. "You don't own us," I yelled, emotions flooding through me. The connection we shared, the fear and the light, turned into a shield. I extended my hand towards Lena. "Take my hand." She lunged towards me, fingers brushing mine, and I felt a burst of warmth flood my veins. The shadows recoiled. For a moment, we were a single entity, united against the darkness. But then the scream of Mrs. Green sliced through the tension. "Don't! You'll only make it worse," her voice wailed as her eyes darted between us. The desperation in her tone clawed at my resolve. "What do you mean?" I shouted back at her, still gripping Lena's hand. I needed answers. "Let go," Mrs. Green pleaded. "They'll take you too if you don't. You're only making it stronger by joining with her. Trust us. We can help you." I faltered, the shadows whispering lies in my ear. "They're saying you're wrong," I yelled to Mrs. Green, desperation creeping in. "But why should I trust a creature wrapped in darkness?" "It's what they want," Mrs. Green insisted, her voice trembling but direct. "They want us to be divided. You have to fight alone." The group shifted restlessly, as if they hungered for my energy. I could see their faces more clearly now, distorted by anguish and fear, yet somewhere deep inside, I sensed a flicker of hope. The air crackled around us, charged with confusion and tension. I hesitated, glancing at Lena, whose eyes held a mix of determination and panic. "We don't have much time. Please trust me," she implored. But should I trust her? I thought of all the questions swirling in my mind. Why did you leave me? Why should I believe in you? Then I saw it, a glimmer of light from Lena's pocket, an object, small and unassuming, but it pulsed with energy. I felt an instinctual pull toward it. "What is that?" I asked, forgetting my fear for a moment. "It's the key to breaking the bond. The light that they fear," Lena said, glancing at the twisting shadows. "But I need your help to activate it." An eerie silence fell over the scene. My neighbors were silent, their distorted faces locked in a mask of anguish. I could see the shadows pulling at them like hungry creatures, trying to drag them away. I looked back at Lena, the world spinning around me. "Let's do it," I said, my voice steady. "We'll fight together." As I clasped her hand tighter, the shadows lunged forward with renewed fury. But now I felt the power of resolve flowing through me. Then everything went dark. My eyes snapped open to a dimly lit space. I was no longer in the swirling chaos with the shadows. Confusion settled in. I blinked, trying to adjust. I was surrounded by darkness, but this was different. Thick, suffocating, and heavy. The air tasted stale and metallic. "Lena," I called out, my voice echoing back to me in the void. Panic rose in my throat. Where was she? Did we get separated? "Over here!" Her voice broke through the oppressive silence. I followed the sound, feeling my way through the thick darkness. Relief washed over me when I spotted her, a faint glow illuminating her face from the object in her hand. "What happened?" I asked, breathless as I stumbled closer. The shadows still felt alive, squirming just beyond the edges of the light, but they were quieter now. They took us to a different place, a pocket of darkness, Lena explained, the small light pulsing softly in her grip. But we can't stay here. They'll come looking for us. I glanced around, straining to see anything beyond the weak glow. What's that in your hand? It's the object I told you about, she said. It's called a lightstone. It can protect us, but we need to find the source of their power if we want to break free. My thoughts raced. How do we do that? We don't even know where we are. That's the challenge, she replied, her tone steady even as uncertainty flickered in her eyes. The shadows will try to twist our perception. We need to focus. I felt an uneasy shiver crawl down my spine. You mean they can trick us? Yes, she nodded, her voice firm. But if we stay united, we can anchor each other. We'll need to find the heart of the darkness. Somewhere in the shadows, there should be a gate. I swallowed hard, nodding slowly. Lead the way, I said, trying to rally the courage to follow her deeper into the darkness. We moved slowly, hand in hand. The shadows writhed and whispered around us, filling my ears with sinister murmurs. I felt a chill on the back of my neck. It was a strange, static hum that made my skin crawl. The darkness seemed to pulse with an unsettling life of its own. Stay focused, Lena urged. Remember, they can't touch you if you believe in the light. Suddenly my heart jumped as a shadow darted in front of us. I froze. The figure was tall and elongated, with hollow eyes that seemed to absorb the dim light emanating from the lightstone. Turn back, it hissed, an echo of my own fears swirling into my mind. You don't belong here. Lena tightened her grip on my hand. Ignore it, keep moving. But fear made my feet heavy. We can't just ignore it, I protested. Before she could respond, more shadows flooded in, surrounding us. The voices became a cacophony, a mix of laughter and cries that assaulted my senses. I squeezed Lena's hand tighter, aware that we were losing ground. Then I heard a voice that felt hauntingly familiar. You can't fight alone, let us take you. It was Mrs. Green. My heart sank. Lena, it's her. Don't listen, Lena shouted. The shadows pressed in closer, their claws reaching out. Join us, Mrs. Green continued, her voice twisting into a siren's call. The light is a lie. In that moment, I felt the truth breaking through the chaos. I had to choose, believe in the light or succumb to the darkness. And that's when I saw it, a flicker in the shadows, a glint of silver. Someone else was here. Who's that? I whispered, my pulse quickening. I don't know, but we need to find out fast. Lena's voice trembled slightly, but determination anchored her resolve. As the shadows closed in, the glint beckoned. Before we could decide, a figure stepped out from the shadowy haze, cloaked and silent. I braced myself. Would this new arrival be friend or foe? The cloaked figure stepped forward, revealing a face partially obscured under a shadowy hood. My heart raced. I thought I might recognize that expression. You have to fight against them, the figure said in a commanding yet soft tone that cut through the chaotic whispers. You're stronger than you know. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice trembling but firm. The shadows surged closer, their insidious whispers clawing at my thoughts. I needed to focus. I needed clarity. I'm here to help you, the figure replied, lowering their hood slightly. I caught a glimpse of their sharp features and piercing eyes, unsettlingly familiar yet distant. You've awakened something that should have remained buried. We must act quickly. Awakened what? I asked, gripping Lena's hand tighter, willing her to stay strong beside me. I could feel the tension rising. The darkness, the figure replied. It thrives on fear and despair. That's why they were called. But it can also be weakened. You have the power to pierce through the shroud. They sense your fear and want to consume it. By embracing that fear, you can transform it. With those words, the shadows lunged forth, and the air grew colder, thick with an oppressive dread. Don't listen to them, Lena yelled, stepping forward slightly and holding the lightstone high. Its glow flickered in response, pushing back against the darkness swirling around us. A low, guttural voice echoed from the shadows. "Surrender, and you will find freedom." It laughed, a chorus of ghastly chuckles mingling with the other voices that churned in the dark. "No," I shouted defiantly, drawing strength from the figure beside me. "You're just a creation of fear." With my declaration, I felt a surge of energy radiate within me. The shadows recoiled momentarily. "Yes," the figure beside me urged me on. "Focus on that feeling. Feel the power of your own conviction." Fueled by an unexpected rush of determination, I stepped forward, the lightstone illuminating my path as I confronted the darkness. "Leave this place," I commanded, feeling my voice grow stronger. The shadows shuddered, and their whispers turned to howls of pain. "You cannot banish us," they screeched, their forms thrashing and writhing. "Maybe not yet," I admitted, "but I can resist you. You don't own me." I lifted the lightstone higher, its glow intensifying. The darkness shrank back once more, revealing the contours of twisted, monstrous shapes. Beside me, the cloaked figure pressed on. "That's it. The more you resist, the weaker they become. You need to channel that strength." "Together," I shouted, turning to Lena. "We need to light the way." Together we focused on the lightstone as shadows reached for us, clawing at our minds, trying to persuade us to yield. "Help us," the voices begged again, echoing the sweetness of lost trust. "You can save us." I struggled against their pleas but sensed the fear underlying every word. "You were once like me," I said, addressing my neighbors encased in shadows. "You had light and hope. Don't let it slip away." But one figure, Mrs. Green, surged forward, pulling away from the rest as she was swallowed by darkness. "You can't do this, let me go." A distorted scream followed, echoing in the hollow space. "No," I shouted, forcing myself to look away. "You can break free," I called to her, trying to pull that thread of human connection. "Remember who you are." The miasma of shadows flickered, then hesitated, and I pushed forward. "You can't take them. They are stronger than this." "Join us," they demanded, their voices rising, now a furious chorus aimed at breaking my resolve. "Come to the darkness." But the shadowy figure had begun to falter, drawing back from the pulsing lightstone. I felt the shift. They were growing weaker. "Cling to that truth," the figure beside me urged. I turned my focus on Lena. "Let's summon everything we have," I exclaimed, summoning every ounce of strength that flowed through me. "Together," Lena yelled, and I felt our energy blend as we lifted the lightstone above our heads. The shadows coiled and shrieked, but we pressed forward, forcing the darkness back, reclaiming little flickers of light amidst the chaos. The figures of my neighbors were twisted and desperate against the overwhelming brightness we conjured, urging them back and reclaiming middle grounds. "You're stronger than fear," I called out. Remember us. Fight back." But shadows clawed frantically at us, threatening to sweep us away. The frantic cacophony swelled as the darkness pressed closer, urging the memories of fear into our minds. It felt suffocating, and I could feel Lena hesitating beside me. Just then, the figure stepped back into the shadows with a ferocity that surprised me. "Embrace it. Trust each other," they said, their features wavering in and out of focus. "That is how you find the light." Gathering my will, I reached for Lena's hand. "Let's unite with each other. We'll fight and we won't hold back." The shadows roared one last time, a unifying wail of anguish that seemed to resonate in my bones, but we turned toward them. Together we plunged into the darkness, holding tightly to each other and that beautiful glimmer of light. Then silence fell. I heard no echoes, no cries of anguish. When I opened my eyes, I was surrounded by a shimmering clarity. Shadows receded entirely. The air hummed with warmth, and I felt safe for the first time since I'd arrived in this town. "Did we do it?" I whispered, still holding Lena's hand tightly. "Not yet," she said softly, glancing around as the brilliant light began to fade, the shadows still lurking at the edges. "We've bought some time, but the darkness will return again. It won't rest until it consumes all who allow fear to breed." I nodded, heart racing. There would always be a residual feeling of unease, of questions lingering just beneath the surface. But we had made a powerful choice, and in finding each other, we'd found the strength to temporarily banish the darkness. Wherever we went, I knew the unease I felt would linger, a muted sense of uncertainty about what was possible. But one thing became clear as I looked into Lena's eyes. I wasn't alone in this fight, and there was always hope, as long as we remembered the light within us. And as I stood on that brink, uncertainty still pulled at my thoughts. What would come next? Would we summon the courage to face the darkness that had wrought havoc on my neighbors? I realized the power of choice remained, but it also left me with an unshakable question. Would I always feel it looming just beyond the horizon?